how to land your next SDR job right now. Either you got laid off recently or looking for a new job, right now you need to stand out. The SDR talent market switched from a candidate-driven market to a company-driven market. Before, companies were struggling to find candidates, and as a job seeker, you could find easily a new job. Now, companies receive 4x or 5x candidates per job opening. So from a candidate perspective, that's where you need to stand out. And so that's why today I receive Florin Tatulea, Director of Sales at Barley. Hey everyone, I'm Eric, and welcome back to another episode of the SDR Game Podcast. Florin, great to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to finally chat and connect in person.
Can you start with letting us know what you do at Barley?
My name is Florin Tatulea. As you mentioned, I'm currently the Director of Sales at Barley, which is a compensation management software selling into the HR and compensation space. Right now, I'm pretty much a glorified full cycle AE, so a ton of prospecting, trying to nail down like our ICP, what our messaging is, trying to close our first customers. So it's a super exciting time.
For SDRs who are listening to this episode, so what are 3 advice would you give to an SDR who are looking for a job right now?
I think it's a super important and relevant topic. And I would say I have a number of pieces of advice. The first thing I'd want to say is that just remember that this is not like your fault in any way or a reflection on you as a person. I think so many different companies are letting people go right now, and it doesn't mean that you're not great at being an SDR, that you're not a great salesperson, and that you should consider another career. That's like the first thing I would tell anybody. I was personally like laid off back in August as well with like the whole GTM function. So if anything, that opened up this new path for me to join my old co-founder, and you can say the stars align. So I think there's a purpose and a reason for everything. So just like look at the positive side of things and try to figure out like what the next move is going to be. In terms of from a tactical perspective, what I would personally do right now to land a job if I was laid off as an SDR. So I think the reality is we can no longer be super picky necessarily to be like, I want to work at this one company right now, and I'm going to do everything to get there. I think the reality, given the economic environment right now, is that some companies, and probably the ones that you love, are not hiring. So there's nothing you can do necessarily if you need a job in the next 2 weeks, 1 month to get there. But I would build a list of companies in whatever industry you're interested in. Let's say it's tech. I would either use LinkedIn to find a list of companies, or one of my new favorite free tools that I'm using right now is puresignal.org, which gives you a list of, or it's pretty much a tracker of companies that are still hiring. One of the things I like about that Pure Signal tracker is that there's a column for each company that shows month over month if their employee direction is going up or down. So are they hiring from last month to this month? That means that right now they have active open roles. So I'd filter through those companies, look at the top 25, 30, and see if there's any of them that resonate with you or you think that are in an interesting space. And then what I would do from there is probably get a free trial to some kind of software like Apollo.io, for example, which gives a two-week trial where you can find phone numbers, you can find emails, and then you could also set up a sequence. And I would actually treat finding a job like as if you were a full-time SDR and you're selling yourself. I think it's the best way to stand out in the interview process. Show that you can walk the walk and that you're not just someone that sounds great. You're actually willing to put in the work. My third tip, after you set up like a sequence for yourself and you find the contact information, what I would personally do is I would phone and email the hiring SDR manager, but then I would also go to the VP of sales. And essentially, I think that should be a relatively short email following a similar structure to how you would think about a template for reaching out to people. The main idea is, why were you interested in them? What about that company specifically? And I would also use a tool probably like Lavender AI. If you haven't checked it out, it's a free Chrome extension you can use to make sure your copy is nice and clean and succinct. And the other thing I would do in that email, which I think is really going to make you stand out, is I would proactively research uh, who they sell to. And I would find 5 accounts and 2 prospects at each one of those and send them a list to the VP and the SDR manager, just being like, hey, I actually went ahead, did some research on your company. I found 5 accounts. Here's 10 prospects in total that I think your team should reach out to. And it doesn't even matter if those are already like customers of theirs or if like they're not actually in their ICP. Just the fact that you showed that you were willing to be proactive, you did the work beforehand of what you would actually be doing in role at the company, I think is so valuable and makes you stand out compared to literally 99% of all other SDRs.
On top of that, just to mention, for example, today I was preparing just a list of companies looking for SDRs, and I saw like a job opening was posted 5 or 6 hours ago, and they had already 200 candidates, more than 200 candidates. So what you just mentioned, really standing out by doing this, I think you may be one or two doing this in the hiring process.
100%. Probably like realistically the only one out of a couple of hundreds. And don't get what's the word I'm looking for? Don't get intimidated by the fact that there's like 200 applicants already. Like the reality is there's a lot of layoffs. People are looking to find jobs, but you can no longer just sit and wait and apply on LinkedIn, apply on their website and wait for them to reach out to you. You have to be proactive, especially for sales roles where that your job is literally being proactive and reaching out to people. You have to show that you can do that throughout an actual like sales cycle, right? And if I had another point, and I think this is taking an extra step, like if you really want to go above and beyond, apart from sending an email to your sales manager and the VP of sales, I would actually go ahead and reach out to the CEO as well. And you can, what I would always do, go on Google, type in like the CEO's name, type in the year. So you could be like, let's say I'm a CEO, Florin Tatulea plus 2022. Google will give you some results of like that CEO's, I don't know, blog posts, like interviews that they did, maybe like some kind of news article or whatever. Then I would take that information and have some kind of like a message to the CEO that says, hi, CEO, just watch your interview or your podcast on X, Y, and Z. And I found it like really inspiring. And then I would go into like, I was recently laid off, but as any great salesperson, I'm not going to let like one rejection define me in my career. This is just the beginning, and I'd love to channel that energy on your team. I've also reached out to manager and the VP regarding the open SDR role, but I just wanted to put myself on your radar as well. And you could even sign off and be like, best from like a very hungry SDR. And I think going that extra step, CEOs do open emails. They're probably going to forward that email to your manager and the VP. You've already sent the 5 accounts, 10 prospects. You're 100% the only person in that hiring process that's already done this. So that's my tips, like if we're going to get tactical.
Just to go back on what you're mentioning about the contacting the CEO, why specifically the CEO, for example? Because if I'm an SDR right now thinking about that, say, yeah, I can do that with the hiring manager or the VP of sales, but why the CEO, for example?
Well, the CEO is like at the highest level. If you can impress the CEO, if the CEO forwards that email over down to the VP of sales, like that's automatically going to capture their attention, right? And think about it. Usually the hardest person, if you're ever going to prospect somebody and the ultimate decision maker is always the CEO. So if you can capture that person, that persona's attention, you can literally capture anyone's attention.
I know you already mentioned a few tools. So you mentioned Peer Signal, you mentioned Apollo, Lavender. Is there any other resource do you recommend for SDR right now? It can be a podcast, it can be an article, it can be a tool or something like that.
there's a lot of resources out there, definitely a lot of noise as well. So I think like be careful and read through things and think through like whether you agree with them or not. But I think generally speaking, good resources. One of my favorite podcasts is 30 Minutes to President's Club with Nick and Armand. I highly recommend you watch it. It's 30 minutes. They make sure that it's very tactical and to the point without any fluff. So, highly recommend for SDRs and AEs. Um, and honestly, like I get a lot of information from my LinkedIn newsfeed. And yes, there's some people that don't have the most fantastic advice. But again, it's like up to you to really think through uh, what people are saying and digest if that's something that you think makes sense. Maybe try it out. A/B test things, right? That's the most important thing, that you're trying things out, because um, everything is unique to you, to your product, to your market, and it's not fair to give blanket advice, because blanket advice doesn't work for everyone. It's very contextual.
Do you have someone that you're following that you recommend on LinkedIn to follow?
I love the like Lavender guys. I think Will Allred from Lavender has fantastic content if you're looking for email advice. Also, people that are like actively in role. I think Anthony Natoli, who's an enterprise AE at Lattice, has good advice. Landon Mayer, who's like an SDR, he posts quite frequently as well. I tend to stick with people that like are actively in seat and in role and actually selling, because they're walking the walk in and doing it on a daily basis.
And so we talk about tips that SDR should do. So what advice should they ignore?
I wouldn't say necessarily ignore, and this is almost going back to my other point. I think there's a lot of information these days on LinkedIn. A lot of people are trying to build their brands, and it's not necessarily that they have wrong advice. It's just that sometimes something is working for a particular salesperson because of their product is, really good product market fit. They're selling to a certain type of persona, and that blanket advice should be taken with a grain of salt, I think, is really the most important thing. The other thing I will say is that most LinkedIn content tends to be geared towards salespeople that are selling to other salespeople. So remember, if you're not selling into the sales persona, it doesn't mean that those tactics necessarily will work for other personas. Like I was selling into engineering recently. It's a very different persona and how they interact with salespeople than other sales leaders. So think about who you're selling to, if that's going to be applicable, and always you trust your own data before the advice of somebody off of LinkedIn.
Well, Florin, it has been a really interesting conversation. Thank you for taking the time today. And I don't want to just finish our conversation. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, a few things, maybe more on the inspirational side. I think, again, don't put yourself down just because like you were let go. I think there's a lot of value in you and the sales development role as well. I think the sales development role is one of the best like roles, and I really believe this, and it's why I love coaching SDR teams. It's a yes, it can be an entry level role, but you're so vital to a business, and the skill set that you're going to develop being an SDR can help in so many different aspects of your career, whether it's like climbing the promotional ladder, whether it's starting your own business, whether it's how you interact with people around you in your everyday life, and making sure that you're negotiating and standing up for yourself. So it's so important. I hope that you're passionate about it, and if you're not, that's totally okay. But there's a lot of exciting things that are going to come in the future for salespeople, I think.
Florin, it was nice to see you. And thanks everybody for listening. And I see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.